Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Bhante Jayasara. So this is the first appearance of our guest monk, Bhante Jayasara, who will be with us for a few weeks. And hello, Demi, Geeta, Gabriella, Grant, Stacy, Jens, Kevin, Bradley, and Leah. Happy to see you all joining in today. Hello, Bhante Jayasara.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Empty Cloud Monastery. So this evening, we will start with chanting the Ratana Sutta as we have been. Then Bhante will lead us in some meditation and give a talk about mettā. So Stan is currently trying to get in Bhante Jay's lap, bringing his own mettā to the equation. Hello, Priya Kant. Welcome for joining in. So once again, we'll all chant the Ratana Sutta together. So starting with Namo Tassa 3 times and then chanting the sutta. So please join in if you can. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Yani bhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vahantaleke. Sabe bhuta sumana bhavantu atopi saka chasunantu pasitam. Tasmahi bhutani sameta sabe metam karota manusiya pajaya. Devacharato chaharanti eva lingtasmahine rakata pamata. Iyan kinchivitang itavahuram vasage suvayam ratanang panitang. Nano samangati tathagatena edampi bunte ratanang panitang. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Kayang viragam amatang panitang yadanchaga sakyamuni samahito. Natena dhammena samati kinchi edampi dhamme ratanang panitang. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Yang Buddha seto parivannayi suching samadhi manantari mahu. Samadhina tena samona vijjati dampi dhamme ratanam panitang. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Ye Bungala Tasatang Pasata Chatari Etani Yugani Honti. Te Dakineya Sugata Sasavaka Ete Sudinani Mahapalani. Edampi Sankhe Ratanam Panitang Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu. Ye supayutta manasa dalhena nekamino gotamasa sanamhi. Te patipata matam vigaya landa mutanim buddhim punjamana. Edampi sankhe ratanam panitang etena sachena suvati hotu. Yatinda kilo pataving sito siya chatu bivate biya sampakampiyo. Tatu pamang samburisang vadami yo ariya satchani aviccha passati. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Ye Arya Sachani Vibhavayanti Gambhira Panyena Sudesitani Kinchapi Te Honti Pusapamata Te Bhavangata Diyanti Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Sahava Sadasana Sampadaya Taya Sudhamma Jahita Bhavanti Sakaya Diti Vichikichitam Cha Silambatam Vapiyadati Kinchi Chatuhapaye Chavipamuto Chachapitana Niyamabbo Katum Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena satchena suvati hotu Kinchapi sokam mangaroti papakam kayena vacha unacheta sava Avambo soda sapati chadaya Bhammata ditthapada sabhuta Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu Vanapagumbe yatha vusitam yegem hanamase patamasming gemhe Tatupamam dhammavaranga desai managaming paramang hitaya Idampi buddhe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu Varo varanyu varado varaharo anuttaro dhammavaranga desai Idampi buddhe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu Kinam Puranam Navam Nati Sambhavam Virata Chitta Yatike Babasming Te Kina Vija Viruhin Chanda Nimanti Tira Yatayam Paripo Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Yani Bhutani Samagatani Pummani Vayani Vahantaleke Tathagatam Deva Manusabhujitam Buddham Namassama Suvati Hotu Yani Bhutani Samagatani Pummani Vayani Vahantaleke Tathagatam Deva Manusabhujitam Dhammam Namassama Suvati Hotu Yani Bhutani Samagatani Pummani Vayani Vahantaleke Tathagatam Deva Manusabhujitam Sangham Namassama Suvati Hotu Etena sacha vanjena dukkha upasamentu te Etena sacha vanjena bhaya upasamentu te Etena sacha vanjena roga upasamentu te. So at this time, I'd like to invite Bhante Jay to lead us in some meditation practice. So please.
Okay, friends. Begin by closing your eyes and setting up your body in whatever posture is comfortable for you. Sitting on a chair, in a cushion, Whenever we sit to meditate, it's good to take a little time to scan through our body and set our body up in a comfortable and stable position. So for a couple minutes, start from the tips of your toes and slowly move up to the top of your head. As you pass through each body part, just the toes, the ankles, the knees, etc. Try to bring your awareness to that body part and examine what feeling arises. What is the feeling of your feet pressing against the floor or against the cushion? See if you can notice any small discomforts or imbalances. And if you do, now is the time to adjust your posture. If you spend some time before sitting for long periods, setting your body up in a comfortable and stable position, you'll be able to sit longer and longer. If you have trouble coming into awareness of the feeling as you scan, you can prompt yourself by asking a question. What do I see? What do I feel? When you sit down by yourself for long periods of time, you can take up to even 10 minutes doing this body scan. But since we have a shorter period and we won't be sitting for too long, whenever you're done scanning, take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, we do not wish to control or manipulate the breath in any way. Just observe the breath, like a scientist observing something through a microscope. Bring your awareness to the fact that this body is breathing in and breathing out. This body does not need you to do its job. It's been breathing since the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. Your job is to simply observe and investigate. If you observe most prominently the feeling of the air going in and out of your nostrils, you can place your awareness there. Or if that's hard and you more prominently observe the rise and fall of the chest, you can place your awareness there. Or you can simply abide with the basic awareness that this body is breathing in and breathing out. Continue observing the breath as I give these basic instructions on metta. For this short meditation, we will be practicing exalted release of mind through metta. This practice involves words and visuals. You can use the words and visuals as you like. But it's important to understand that the words and visuals are not the point of metta practice. They are simply the means to an end. When we practice metta, we want to practice developing a mind free of ill will and warm-hearted thoughts and feelings of friendship for all beings. Like that feeling we get when sitting around a table with close family or friends, whoever is most close and dear to us. A feeling of safety, trust, friendship. And we expand that to include all beings everywhere. We invite all beings to our table in the spirit of friendship. So, the beginning of our practice tonight, we will start with the person whom we may often have the most judgment towards, be the most critical of, perhaps even hatred of. That person is ourselves. We cannot hope to have limitless goodwill for all beings if we don't have it for ourselves. So let's first practice bringing up warm-hearted thoughts of goodwill. Build that up within us. You can repeat these words after me. May I find happiness. May I find peace. May I live in friendship with all beings. May I find release from suffering. When we repeat words of metta, we want to make sure that we are not just repeating them really fast so that they lose their meaning. But each time we say the words, try to do so with a sincere wish and a sincere desire in that wish that this person be free of suffering and find happiness, etc. If you'd like a visual, you can visualize yourself in front of you, like looking in the mirror. And even though it might be hard to give us ourselves these good wishes, try to think about how you would talk and how you would give these good wishes to your best friend. It wouldn't sound corny or contrived or undeserved that you give it to your best friend, these good wishes. So try to do the same for you. Build up mettā inside of you. Pervade your whole body with goodwill. May I find happiness. May I find peace. May I live in friendship with all beings. May I find release from suffering. Now you can visualize a sphere of light around you. Within that sphere is permeated and pervaded by your metta. We don't wish to just keep our goodwill within ourselves. We want to spread our goodwill out limitless. So spread that sphere of metta out to encompass the entirety of whatever building you're in right now. In this building, there's human beings, maybe little mammals like mice, many insects, and possibly even invisible beings. Beings you can see and beings you can't, small and large. All the beings in this building can repeat. May all of us in this building find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. We will continue to spread our sphere out, but always remember, you are at the center of that sphere. You are part of all beings. This is why we use all of us. Spread your sphere out to encompass the entirety of whatever town or village you're in. May all of us in this town or village find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Spread your sphere out to encompass the entirety of whatever state or province or region that you're in. May all of us in this state, province, or region find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Spread your sphere out to encompass the entirety of this country, or whatever country you're in. If you have a good visualization of your country, you can have it in your mind completely encompassed by your sphere of metta. May all of us in this country find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. When we practice metta, when we try to develop limitless goodwill for all beings, sex does not matter, race, political affiliation, religious affiliation, sports team affiliation, whatever ways that we delineate, categorize, and separate, none of that matters when we practice metta. Metta breaks through barriers. It is limitless for all beings, those that we like, those that we love, those that we hate. There is no exception when we practice metta. Spread your sphere to encompass the entirety of this planet. A pale blue dot in a sea of black. Full of trillions of beings. Humans and animals and insects and creatures of the sea. Trillions of beings. May all of us on this planet find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Friends, when we practice metta, we don't expect that everybody across the world is going to hold hands and sing kumbaya and live in peace. This is not possible. But we can abide with these good thoughts in our mind. In our mind, there can be peace and kindness and limitless goodwill, wishing all beings goodwill. We are not done just yet, friends. Spread our sphere out into the cosmos to encompass the entirety of the Milky Way galaxy. Billions of planets. We don't limit our metta. We don't know what beings are out there, but we give our metta to all. May all of us in the Milky Way find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. And finally, spread your metta out into the universe, to infinity. We don't know what's out there. Maybe many universes. Who knows? Spread your sphere out to encompass all beings in existence, wherever they may be, whatever they may be, whatever form, whatever type of existence. All are included. May all of us in existence find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. And start to slowly come back through the universe to the planet and all the way back to yourself sitting wherever you may be. You can slowly begin to open your mind, open your eyes, and come back to an awareness of your environment. Friends, if you are all blissed out with kindness for all beings, that's good. If not, that's okay too. Metta is a practice. It is something you develop. The more you practice, the more you build up your metta, and the more you live with a peaceful mind. So friends, okay, so it's about 8:10. So, there's a clock right there. Okay, so that's good. So let's give a talk for maybe about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll do Q&A. So, this right here?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you, Bante, and hello to a few more people checking in. So hello, Gita, Ratnayake, hello, Cunning Corbett, Ethan, Elizabeth, James, Richard, Victor, and Lucas. Happy to see all of you joining in as well. Bante, if you clip it to this part, then it'll make less noise, like this part of the road. Yeah, that's good. Great.
Were we supposed to do that a half hour ago?
No. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So the topic is metta, right? We've been going through the paramis, and obviously those of you who know the Buddha, we can understand how the Buddha has such universal, powerful metta, right? So if you're developing the paramis to try to become a future Buddha yourself, then this is obviously one of the most important qualities to develop, right? Because the Buddha teaches the Dhamma for all beings, right? With no exceptions. So if we practice metta, developing metta over many lifetimes, we can really have limitless metta for all beings. So what is metta? I'm going to ask, is there anybody who has literally never heard a talk on metta ever in the chat? Because we don't have too much time, and I don't need to, there's nobody who's brand new, I don't need to spend a lot of beginning time. What do we have?
Well, nobody said anything yet. By the way, there's about a 3 or 4 second time delay between when you talk and when people hear it.
Gotcha. That's good to know. I can
Grant
go over the...
says, met who? I think that means that he doesn't know what metta is.
Or he's being facetious. But okay, so I can at least for now go over the term metta, right? So metta has been originally translated from the earliest English translations as loving kindness. And that is what you will see most of the translations, loving kindness. Some more modern translations, including with Bhante Gunarathan, who's my preceptor at Bhavana Society, he translates it as loving friendliness. And those of you who know Bhante Ji know he just came out with a Metta book last year, and he named it Loving Friendliness. But Wisdom Publication said, no, everybody knows it as loving kindness. So this is what we're going to name it, right? So this loving kindness is the most known definition. My preferred definition for metta, actually, let me go over the Pali word metta. So the Pali word metta is derived from mitra, which means friend or friendliness. Right? There's also a derivation of the word from the word mid, and this is an interesting one because mid has two meanings. One of the meanings is love. The other meaning is to grow fat. So you could technically say that metta, when you practice metta, you grow fat a mind of goodwill, a mind of love for all beings, right? Growing a mind fat of goodwill is much better than growing a body fat of fat. So this is a very good thing for us to develop. A mind of limitless goodwill, limitless appamana. This means limitless, right? This is a term that the Buddha uses. No limits, no barriers. No, we don't say, I love this person, may they have lots of metta. I don't like that person, no metta for them, right? Metta is for everybody. We want to develop the limitless goodwill for all beings. That's a tall order. It's not easy. It's an ideal for us to strive for, right? That's what, when we follow the Noble Eightfold Path, in all the aspects of the path, it's an ideal for us to strive for. We don't just become, now I'm a Buddhist, now I magically have metta for everybody. No, that doesn't exist. It's like some people think that when monks put on the robes, then all of a sudden they're holy and they're really good, right? No, monks are practicing too. Everybody who's following the Noble Eightfold Path is practicing, developing, right? And so when we practice metta, we might go into it with the wonderful intention, may all beings, not that son of a, may all beings hate them, right? And that's going to happen. This is why I said at the end of the guided meditation, if you weren't all blissed out for all beings, that's okay. That's normal. And sometimes certain situations, right, we can more easily have lots of metta, right? It's quite funny. I always joke, the people who know me know that I always joke about how I feel like I had more metta before I became a monk than after. Because I lived a nice, and I was very blissed out for all beings. And then becoming a monk and changing your life is kind of hard. So the situation became harder. And guess what? My metta was not as blissed out, right? So this is how things go. But the purpose, the reason why the Buddha wants us to practice metta is for the abandoning of ill will and anger in our minds. Okay. The Buddha is asked, what is the one thing that the noble ones approve, or what is the one thing that the Tathagatas approve of killing? And the Buddha says the one thing that the noble ones approve of killing is anger. Okay? The Buddha uses the simile of a plant. So the Buddha says anger is there's the crest of the plant. And the crest is, what? The crest is a wonderful, I'm trying to remember the crest. But anyway, the crest is very attractive and, tasteful and all the kinds of things. It's very nice. It's very attractive, right? But the root is poison. Okay? So even though we have, whatever our reasons for being angry, there's always that root of poison, right? So the Buddha says that's the only thing, honeyed crest and poison root. That's what it was, right? So that's the one thing, right? Our ill will, our anger. That's the one thing that the Buddha approves of killing. So we practice metta to do that. We practice metta to abandon our ill will. Right? We have three problems. All of us, all of our minds have what? Greed, hatred, and delusion. Okay? So we practice metta to go counteract directly our hatred, our aversion. Right? That's why we practice metta. Right? And in one of my favorite suttas about metta, we have what I call the metta ideal. Okay? This sutta is the Kakachupama Sutta. This is the simile of the saw. Some of you might know what that sutta is. It opens up, and there's a monk named Paguna. And he is very close with some other monastics. And it starts out and it says that, when somebody says disparaging words against those monastics, he gets angry and makes a case of it. And when somebody says disparaging words against Paguna, the other monastics get angry and make a case of it. Right? And so the Buddha finds out about this, and he asks friend Paguna, come, and be in front of the teacher. And the Buddha says, Paguna, have you, gone forth as a monastic? And he says, yes, obviously, he's a monastic. And so the Buddha says, it is not proper for you to act in such a way, right? This is not the way that a monastic should act. So the Buddha gave us a training in this sutta. He says, when somebody is to say evil words towards you, this is how you should train. My mind shall remain unaffected, and I shall utter no evil words. I shall abide compassionate for that person's welfare. And starting with that person, I shall pervade the all-encompassing world with a mind of goodwill, immeasurable, exalted, free of ill will, free of aversion. That's a lot to ask, isn't it? Right? That's a tough call to do that. How can I do this? This person is yelling at me, calling me names, saying whatever, right? But that's only the beginning. So the Buddha says, if somebody were to hit you with a fist, this is how you should train. My mind shall remain unaffected, and I shall utter no evil words. I shall abide compassionate for their welfare. Right? And I'm not going to repeat the same thing over and over, but it's the same thing. Then if somebody were to hit you with a stick, somebody were to hit you with a sword, right? The Buddha goes all the way up these levels. And then finally, he goes to the simile of the saw. And he says, even if bandits were to take you and to saw you limb from limb, any one of you who were to have any ill will arise in your mind, you are not doing my teaching. Wow. Right? That's a tough one, isn't it? Like, I think about that every once in a while. I think like, okay, I've been practicing for a number of years now. I have a decent amount of metta. If somebody were sawing me, how would I act? And the answer is not like what the Buddha says. I could not say that I would have no ill will if somebody was harming me, right? But that's okay. This is why I call it the metta ideal. The Buddha is giving you a training, right? Metta is a training. It's a practice. It's something we develop over time by continuously practicing, continuously going against our ill will, right? And these kind of things. This is what, it's a very powerful, powerful practice. And those of you who've practiced for a long time, maybe, and you've experienced that, you know, right? I can remember very vividly times where I had really, I had to be around a person and, they had, treated me very poorly and I was very agitated. And like, if I see them, just all kinds of thoughts arise in my mind, right? And I'm trying to practice metta, metta, metta. And usually my mind's like, no, that's stupid, right? It's very hard to try to counteract that, practicing metta. But if you know your mind, a mind of ill will and aversion and hatred, it's so heavy, it's so oppressive, it's like a prison. I remember one time where I was able to work with it and practice metta, and my mind just changed. It just went to metta, and it was light, and it was peaceful, and it was free. Like, yes, this is what metta is for. Right? It didn't change the fact that this person had treated me poorly and all that kind of things, and it didn't change the fact that I needed to to protect myself and to act in a certain way and to, set boundaries and all that. That's not what this is about. But in my own mind, I was able to free up all kinds of the hatred and the aversion that I had, at least for that temporarily. Now, I still have, if I look in my own mind for that person, I still have anxiety and agitation towards that person, even to this day, right? It's okay, right? This is how the mind works. But I can practice metta for that person and for all beings, right? It doesn't matter. There's no distinction, right? When we practice metta. And so this is the simile of the saw, right? But there's another funny story in that sutta. This is Majjhima Nikaya number 21, I believe. Kakachupama Sutta, simile of the saw. And the Buddha talks about this in this, that he doesn't praise somebody who has lots of metta and is so kind to people when things are easy, right? Because that's easy. When things are easy, it's easy to have metta for people and be kind to people. It's when things are harder, that's a different story. Right? And so he tells the story of the maid Kali. And this maid is a young woman who works for a lady of the town, a well-respected lady, and she has a good reputation. And the reputation is that she's very kind and nice to everybody. Right? And so Kali decides to be a little bit of a scientist, a little bit of a troll. And she's like, my mistress has a good reputation. I wonder if it's just because I do my job, right? And I'm on time and I'm very kind. Right? So let me test my mistress, right? And so the next day she decides to wake up late. And the mistress comes up to her and says, Kali, what is the meaning of this? why have you woken up late? And Kali's like, no reason. And then it said that the mistress had a little bit of a scowl, right? So right then and there, it hasn't really come out, but in the mind, you can see she's just kind of holding back a little bit of a scowl, right? And so Kali's like, aha, I think I'm onto something. Let me try tomorrow. So tomorrow, Kali woke up and it was even later. And again, mistress, Kali, what is the meaning of this? Why have you woken up so late? No reason, right? If you're like a parent, if you ever had like children, something happens like, who did this? What happened? Everybody's like, I didn't do it. Nothing happened. No reason. And that gets you like kind of agitated, right? What do you mean, no reason? And so she called her a foolish girl, stupid girl. So it went from the mind, verbal, right? So now she said something. So Kali says, okay, I'm going to wake up even later the next day. And so Kali woke up even later. And then the mistress came, stupid girl, why are you late? Why is this? No reason. And so it said that the mistress took a rolling pin and hit Kali over the head, right? And she went through the town with her head was bleeding. She said, see what this wonderful mistress does? See what this is, right? So the moral of the story is, it's very nice. It's very easy to be kind and to, and to have lots of metta when things are going well, right? It's a lot harder when you're tested. There's a wonderful poem that I love, and it's, I forgot the name of the woman. It's from the end of last century, I believe. Well, 2 centuries ago. So the end of the 1800s, maybe early 20s. And I always had this at my desk at work. And the one phrase I remember is, it's easy enough to be happy when life goes along like a song. But the one worthwhile is the one who can smile when everything goes all wrong, right? I love that because I worked, my job was rough. I worked child protective services, all kinds of emergencies, all kinds of de-escalating things, all kinds of stuff. And I was like, okay, what can I do when everything seems so rough and so the world is this, coming down on me and everything's so tough? Maybe I can smile. Maybe I can practice metta, right? So metta is harder in tougher times, but it's not impossible, right? So we want to practice developing our metta slowly. If you have, you're practicing your metta and your mind starts going off on the people you don't like, it's okay, right? You don't have to be judgmental of yourself. Say, you're such a horrible Buddhist, you're a horrible meditator, you can't have metta for all beings. No, right? This is part of having metta for yourself, right? So if you have your mind comes up, there's a part of you that comes up and, says, except for that person, well, you can laugh at it. You can say, okay, well, I hear you, I understand, but let's try to have metta for that person too, right? Right? Let's try to follow the Buddha's teachings. Let's try to practice as well as we can, developing this metta, right? And there's different types of metta. The metta that I taught that we did in the guided meditation is something, it's called Magadha. It's called exalted release of mind, Magadha Ceto Vimutti, right? And this is something you see in the early texts, and it's not something that's specific to metta. It can be used apparently with jhanas and all kinds of different things, but it's a wonderful, easy way to practice, right? You don't have to worry about individuals, right? Now you don't have to be like, I need to practice metta for this specific person and that specific person. You can just spread your metta out. And even you can do that. This is my favorite type of metta, and I can practice this while I'm walking, sitting. You can, one of the first times I came to Buddhist Insights in New York City. And I've told this story before. Some of you might have heard it, and how I have lots of aversion for the city and everything. And I was in the subway and I'm like, where am I? And what is this place? And all this stuff. and I practiced lots of metta, right? And that changed my mindset, and it changed everything, right? To have lots of practicing metta, right? So even in tough situations, even when there's lots of fear and anger and all kinds of things, right? In our own lives, in the world, wherever, we can try to do our best to practice goodwill for all beings, right? We want to have in our minds, even if it's somebody, like, for instance, like, think about like a judge, right? Somebody who has to sentence somebody to jail for life. Maybe they killed somebody or whatever, right? That person might have to go to jail, but we don't have to hate that person, right? We don't have to, the judge doesn't have to have ill will for that person, right? So we're not talking about, because some people think about, how can I have goodwill for this person because they're doing X, Y, and Z, right? So there's a separation there. There's a difference. Even in the Buddha, even in the suttas, you can see, there's a simile of how the Buddha doesn't accept a gift. Somebody who came to him and was, saying all kinds of bad stuff to him. And he says, do you give a gift when you visit somebody? And the person's like, yes, I do. It's like, what do you do if they don't take the gift? Oh, we use it ourselves. So the Buddha says, well, I don't accept this gift that you've given me, right? So having metta for all beings doesn't mean that you're a pushover or you let people harm you or anything like that. This is for your own mind so that you can have a wonderful, calm, peaceful mind of goodwill for all beings, right? Goodwill for everybody. This is important because in the end, right, this helps your mind. Right? Do you want your mind to be always full with all of these things, right? While you're trying to live a good life and to try to, take care of your family and do good things in the world and all that. Do you want your mind to have all of that baggage? All of that? It's really heavy, right? So it's very good, especially as a parami, right? To practice this where we try to develop this goodwill for all beings, right? All beings in samsara. Right? In our many lifetimes, we've done many horrible things. In our many lifetimes, we've done many good things. Right? And when we see it at that level, it becomes much easier to have metta for all beings. And so with that, we'll go to questions.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. So if anybody has any questions or comments, please type them into the live chat and I'll read them out for Bhante. And there's already a few questions, so let's start with that. So Gabriella asks, when we pair up metta with the enlightenment factors, how far do the parami go?
When we pair up metta with the enlightenment factors, how far do the parami go? I don't know if I understand the question, to be honest with you, or not, at least enough to answer it per se. When we pray, I can talk about maybe metta in relation to the 7 factors of enlightenment. I think that metta is something that we practice, but it's also something that the more we see things with insight, the more we understand the nature of the world, the nature of our minds, it actually becomes much easier to have metta. One of the things I remember talking to Bhante Ji, I was coming to get him for us to have lunch one day. And I kind of asked him, I said about my metta, because my metta was, having trouble. I was kind of a little disturbed that my metta wasn't as blissed out and wonderful as it used to be, right? And he said something that I still remember to this day. It was very impactful. He said, until you see impermanence at a deep level, your metta will only be surface deep. It will only be skin deep. Right? So what is he saying there? That your metta is connected with your insight, with your wisdom. Right? So when we practice, like I think about the Buddha, right? The Buddha, there's a simile of the Buddha, how he says he's able to, like, he is like somebody who is on top of a mountain, is able to see all the people below, right? He's able to see. Like if you've lived in the mountains, like if you live at, if you come to Bhavana is not on the top of a mountain, it's kind of in the mountain, right? So you can't really see much. It's all in the woods and it's canopy. But if you're on top of the mountain, you can see, wow, look at all this, right? So most of us are just kind of in the mire on the bottom, right? So it's hard to see, right? When the Buddha is on top of the mountain, and he sees all of these beings who are full of greed, hatred, and delusion, and they're being born and reborn, and they're suffering and they're hurting and people, and they're hurting themselves. And if you can see that grand of a thing, how could you not have metta? How could you not have compassion for beings, right? So to have that, to be able to have the mindfulness, right? So, mindfulness and investigation, and all of the qualities, all of the factors of awakening, right? They enhance our metta. They inform our metta. They help to make our metta deeper and stronger, right? The more we have, the deeper our insight into the nature of reality, the more we see things as they are, the more our metta and our compassion raise to a level that goes even higher and beyond what the average person can have.
Great. And the next question, Gita Ratnayake asks, false pride is one of my defilements. I have been attempting to overcome this with partial effect. It appears to be a habit. Any advice?
False pride. In terms of like false, what is I'd like a little bit of a clarification in terms of what she might mean by false pride. Like a pride in something that you don't actually have, per se. Pride is an interesting thing. It's because we have this identity, right? Because we attach to the 5 aggregates as a self. This is mine. This is me. This is myself, right? Naturally, we have pride. Pride arises, right? And pride can be a good thing in certain things. I take pride in, making sure that my community is clean. I take pride in making sure that my house is clean, or that my children are well taken care of, and all these kind of things. That's good for pride. But there's also the pride of, I know all this stuff, so I'm really something, right? I'm better than all these people. They don't really know what they're talking about, right? That is where pride becomes very dangerous, right? I see this a lot, online. Like I'll see people, like they start to know the suttas and things like that, and all of a sudden they're kind of acting like sutta scholars, and they like to go online and they debate each other. Well, the sutta, this, right? And so you any kind of thing where you study and you become kind of proud of your knowledge, or proud of this, or like I can reach the 4th jhana, these kind of things. That is setting yourself up for a fall, right? That is setting yourself up for suffering, right? That is allowing this mind, this identity, to dilute itself more and more and more, right? Pride, right? And so how do we kind of work against that pride, right? Well, one of the most important things is making sure that you don't lie to yourself. And when you see your mind trying to kind of convince yourself, part of your mind is like, oh, you're this and that, or, you should do this and that. You have to observe and watch if your mind is trying to trick you, trying to lie to you, right? One of the things that I like, as a monastic who was kind of thrown into this kind of like the teaching and doing talks and all this stuff kind of early, like I, used to like, oh, people like what I do and all these kind of things, right? And you start to see this like, oh, this is really nice. Like, you start to kind of build this pride and like, oh, it's so nice to be a Dhamma teacher and all this. But I remember in the early times when that started to kind of happen, my love of history came in, and I was reminded of ancient Rome when the generals had a victory, had a triumph, and that was a big parade that came in through Rome. And supposedly the tradition is that there was a slave or somebody in the chariot with the general who had this wonderful victory, and the slave said, it was whispering in their ear, "Thou art mortal, thou art mortal," right? So that's a good kind of guide for your pride, right? Whatever you think, oh, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, you can reflect on things. Like first you can reflect on, there's always somebody better, right? That's number one. Oh, or you think you're a big shot, huh? There's always somebody better, always, right? So that puts you kind of, puts you in your place a little bit. Reflect, there's always somebody better. You can also reflect on, one of the things that the Buddha wants us to investigate all of our phenomena. When we look at something, he wants us to try to investigate three things: the gratification, the danger, and the escape. And we can investigate when you have those feelings of pride that kind of like, oh, I'm this and I'm that. See where's the gratification in that? Where's the gratification is? It makes you feel good, maybe raises your self-confidence and, makes you feel more important and all these things, right? So that's the gratification. But what's the danger, right? Arrogance, harming other people, deluding yourself, right? The more you get, I'm really good at this. What does that also mean? It's like, oh, I don't need to keep trying to be better. I don't need to keep trying to learn more and all these kind of things, right? So pride is a trap, right? You can see that pride is a danger in that regard, right? So it's very important to understand how pride arises, right? Why it's arising. And then you can work to counteract that. You can reflect like this. So I have developed this thing in my own mind where anytime my mind says something, I question. Oh, really? Like, oh, I'm really good at this. Are you? Right? It's like my mind, like whatever narrative my mind likes to come up with, there's a part of me that's saying, are you? Oh, really? Is this true? Right? That's investigation, right? That's kind of not just accepting whatever your mind is telling you, right? Now, your mind is full of pride. Okay, you're not trying to repress it. You don't try to push it away, right? But you investigate it and you question it. You don't just accept it. So, oh, yeah, this is it. You investigate and you question. And the more you do that, the more you see, oh, this is kind of silly to build this up, to feed into this. Why would I feed into this? Right? So those are some ways you can work with pride.
Okay, thank you. And Gabriella asks, how do we carefully ensure that anatta sanya doesn't interfere with our metta, as depersonalizing others tends to have the effect of bringing calmness in sad situations, but it runs the risk of apathy? How do we ensure we are always our most compassionate, still uncontaminated by sentimentality?
Well, see, this is the thing, right? If everybody understood, if everybody had destroyed the conceit I am, then you wouldn't have to worry too much about metta, would you? Or you wouldn't have to worry about but because people have an attachment to their identity, right? I have been born in this life as I'm a man. I'm from, most of my ancestors are from Europe. This is where I was born, all of these things, right? Because of that, then we get attached to these things, and that can affect the metta. So, but if you understood, right, we're all beings, right? We are attached to these things. So even if you have levels and understandings of not self, you don't treat other people that way, right? You don't say, hey, you're just five aggregates. I don't care what you think, right? No, of course you understand that this person, you're not like being prideful. You're not like, oh, these people are so stupid. They really believe that there's a self, or not, that's not the same. But you take into consideration that different people are at different levels and understand different things. And so even if you understand not self a little bit, that doesn't mean that to think that kind of minimizes your metta, or that kind of dehumanizes somebody. If that's where you're thinking, then you're going down a wrong way. That's not what it's supposed to be, right? You understand, listen, we see in the one sutta with Vajragota, the Buddha is asked if there's a self or not a self, and he refuses to answer, right? So just because you might know, okay, even you might repeat yourself, all is emptiness, all is emptiness, all is emptiness. Somebody comes and punches you in the face, you're going to say, oh, all is emptiness, all is emptiness. No, you're going to feel it. It's going to hurt. It's going to harm you mentally and physically, all these kind of things, right? So there's no denying that there's an impact of our actions on other people, on ourselves, right? So even if you understand, this is why, there's funny things. I still remember, and I bring it up all the time. The first time I heard it, when one of my visits at Bhavana early as a layperson, and this person was like, these five aggregates are thirsty. These five aggregates are hungry. And like this person was trying to, it's like, that's a silly way of thinking things. Like one of the things that I love about Ajahn Chah is he talks about being a master of the mundane and the master of the transcendent, right? So the transcendent understanding is there's no permanent being, right? I'm here and Bhante is here and I is here. There's no permanent beings in this room, right? But if I, punch Bhante, or if I curse at him or whatever, I'm going to be affected by that, and he's going to be affected by that, right? So that just because there's the transcendent reality is one thing, doesn't mean the mundane reality is not affected, right? Doesn't mean that the mundane reality is you're not going to harm somebody, right? Or even if you say, somebody harms you, like, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself, this is not me, this is not mine. You can say that all you want, but guess what? Me, mine, and myself is hurt. Me, mine, and myself is suffering, isn't it? Right? Because we don't have the insight, we don't have the understanding yet. We're not awakened beings, right? So if you kind of see that there's a depersonalization, then try to think of, understand that, that there's the mundane and the transcendent. Like I can remember one time, the first time I thought of somebody I love, like my mother, the first time I was thinking, and my mind said, instead of my mom, my mind said this being, right? So I was, my very strong practice that time, and I was very strong renunciation and letting go. And so this person who brought me into this world, my mind thought this being, just like another being in samsara, right? And of course, does that mean like, oh, now I have, I've lost all love for my mother and all these? No, of course not. I still have that attachment. This person brought me into the world. I have this attachment to them. But that brief second, I saw, that this person is a being in samsara. Many of you know that I was, married and she died and all these things many years ago, right? And I had the same, at that time, I realized, well, this person that I was married to is a being in samsara. Right? They're not here anymore. They're wherever they're at, right? So there's a difference between the transcendent and the mundane, right? The mundane is there are people, and people who are all very, attached. We're not awakened beings. So we have much attachment to who we are and what we look like and all these kind of things. And so we can understand, even if you start to understand anatta, that doesn't mean that somehow makes your metta depersonal. It doesn't mean that you, all of a sudden you're like, I have metta for everybody's 5 aggregates. In essence, that's what it is. But in reality, no, you have metta for all the beings who are in samsara with you, who are suffering with you, right? Who you wish to eventually all attain nibbana with you.
Okay. So there's a question on Facebook, so I'll read this one out. So Kevin S. asks, how about dealing with parents or caretakers who are physically and sexually abusive in childhood? I'm struggling with this because the anger and damage is very deep and pervasive even into adulthood. How to transcend this and find peace within? Do I need to love the abuser? How to deal with this in a spiritual way?
So, how to deal with this in a spiritual way? I'm going to assume, or at least I'm going to not discuss that hopefully there's been some kind of therapeutic interventions there, doing some kind of therapy and working through that kind of stuff in that regard, right? So that should definitely be an element if it hasn't been one. Like I had mentioned, my job was child protective services. So I worked with families and all kinds of issues in these things, right? And so some kind of therapeutic intervention is important. The other thing is, if you have to deal with family members, spouses, whatever, that are abusive, that are harmful to you mentally or physically, this again doesn't mean that you just say, I have much metta for you, and you just do whatever you want to do. No, you have to be able to set boundaries, right? You have to be able to take care of yourself, right? You can have metta for that person and also say, I'm setting this boundary. Don't cross this boundary. Or you can even have metta for that person. You can say, I'm never going to see you again, right? Because you're a harmful influence in my life, and I need to be separate from that. Right? So yes, you can, I believe you can eventually have metta for anyone, even the person who's harmed you very deeply. But that is something that may or may not come. And if it does come, it comes after lots of years of therapy and lots of years of practice and integrating and working through all the stages of grief and dealing with all the stuff that happened to you. Right. And then maybe once that happens, you can forgive. Right. And maybe the forgiveness is not for that person. Maybe it's for you, so that you can let go of this and you can have peace of mind, right? That's very important. But this is a long process. It's not something that you should try to force on yourself. It's not something that you should try to expect, but you work through the process. You work through, it's very important, because that's metta for yourself. The Buddha says very clearly in the early text, he says, do not sacrifice, do not abandon yourself for others, right? Everywhere in the suttas, when the Buddha talks about doing something, the Buddha says, you do this, try to do something that is skillful and beneficial for yourself and others, right? So if you have to do something that's beneficial for yourself, you do it, right? You have to set boundaries. You have to, be away from that person. Whatever you need to do, you do it. That's okay. And you might have, lots of anger towards that person. So that's stuff you have to, do the proper healing, the proper going through the cycles and all of these things, the proper therapeutic services, the proper practice and development of insight, and the proper metta. And then maybe after these years, you can, I forgive this person. I hope that they attain an awakening, even if you say, I never need to see you again, right? Because this is for the best, because you're still harmful. I don't want you to be around my children, whatever you have to do, that's okay. But you can still try to say, I wish this person to be well, happy, and peaceful. I hope that in the future they become awake. Right? And even if it's not for them, it's for you, for your own mind, so that you can move forward and be at peace.
Okay. And we have 2 more questions. James asks, is metta the intention to produce it or the feeling that comes of the intentions?
I would say that the feeling is what arises from the intentions. Feeling is like anything. Feeling is impermanent, right? Feeling is, it may be there, it may not be there. Right? Like I was saying, in my lay life, in my early days of metta, I was blissed out for all beings. I could really feel it. It was wonderful. It was like a drug. It was so wonderful to be blissed out for all beings. And then it went away. Basically, when I moved to the monastery to become a monk, but I still, I still practiced metta and all these kind of things, but it went away and I wasn't blissed out. And, I became attached to it. So I was really, I like this feeling and all these kind of things. And Bhante, I spoke to Bhante Ji about it, and he said, that happens. He says, the feeling is impermanent. The feeling is going to go away. It's going to come. What is your mind? Is there ill will in your mind, right? So the intention is to develop that, to abandon the ill will in your mind. Whatever the feeling is, that's not as important. It's good. It helps kind of build the desire to want to keep doing it, right? And it helps, having that feeling helps you to more easily engage with people with the desire to have them be part of your table, right? To have them be, to accept them as with limitless goodwill, right? So that is a benefit, that is a boon, a help to that. But in the end, you can't depend on it. It's not going to always be there. You can always examine your mind. Is your mind free of ill will, right? And that's the intention. The mind is, because the mind free of ill will, even if you're not blissed out and have wonderful feelings of metta, the mind, free of ill will. Even if you're not blissed out, you can still have that mind. Your mind is clear, and you can have mindfulness when you engage with people, and you're more likely to engage with them in a skillful way, which is also metta, right? Engaging with people in a skillful way that's going to be beneficial to yourself and others. So even without the feeling, which is impermanent and undependable, unstable, you can maintain the intention to develop a mind free of ill will and examine your mind, investigate your mind to see where it is free of ill will and where there might be little crevices that ill will still reside.
Okay. And Janice thinks that the poem you were quoting is by Ella Wheeler Wilcox.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Actually, it's the whole poem. I just like about a month ago, I read the whole poem, and the whole poem is actually really nice. But all those years, I only knew that what would you call it, a quatrain, right? Those 4 stanzas. So yes, that's the person. Really good poem.
Okay, and the last question for the night, James asks, what are the factors that constitute a metta awareness release, Ceto Vimutti?
So, Ceto Vimutti, a mind freed, right? That's what that is. Ceto, mind. Vimutti, free. Okay? So, if your mind is free of ill will and hatred, then it's free. It's metta. That's a free of metta. Metta ceto vimutti, a mind released through metta. Right? So if you can observe in your mind that you don't observe any ill will, don't get attached to it, because you're going to have ill will come back probably in about 10 minutes. But you can observe, what is it like when your mind is free of ill will? Oh, this is so nice. It's so peaceful, and you can observe. You can even observe. One of the benefits of being a meditator and really practicing and developing your mind is you can even observe what a mind is like when you're full of anger, full of lust, full of really strong emotional states. And you can say, oh, God, this is really heavy. This is why would I want my mind to be like this, right? It's so much nicer when my mind is full of metta, free, released from ill will. released from anger, right? Released from all of these things. Freedom. Metta ceto vimukti. That's why we practice metta, for our mind to be released from ill will. For most of us, for all of us, until we're awakened, that's going to be temporary. Because ill will is still there. The root is still there. We're just chopping the weeds, right? We're trimming the lawn, right? Practicing metta. But the root is still there. When we become awakened, especially when we become a non-returner, we can abandon those roots. We can cut them out at the root. And then we have just metta. But until then, we're mowing the lawn. We're practicing. We're developing. We're trying to practice abandoning ill will, right? So,
okay. Well, thank you, Bhante Jay. And that's all the questions for tonight. So thank you all for joining in and participating. So please join in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for more sutta study and 7:30 for the final talk on the 10 parami with, who knows? It could be me, it could be Bhante Jay, it could be Ayasoma, it could even be Stan. Who knows? You'll find out tomorrow. So good night and sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
practice well and be well.